Hey, Kyle Jones. Welcome to Resilient Business. Glad to have you on here today. How are you doing?
Doing good, man. It's happy Monday, right?
Yeah, I know. We're doing this on a Monday. That's great. And so I'm glad we were able to put this together. I know we've been talking about it for a little bit here. And why don't we just jump in and talk about your company and who you are, kind of what your background is, and what sort of led you to where you are today with your company, iCRYO.
Oh man, we're gonna need a few days for that story.
We need a couple episodes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean the short and sweet version for me, I own a company called iCRYO, one of the largest, franchising longevity companies in the world. We've kind of set out a mission to tackle not just the United States, but several countries around the globe to extend our offering to, and it sparked, the story of iCRYO is something that, sometimes I get pretty emotional about when I think about it or talk about it. So I'm going to warn you guys ahead of time if that happens. But, for me, even at a young age, I grew up as a multi-sport athlete. By the age of 4, I was doing, 4 or 5 different sports. My dad had me in everything, minus croquet. And, for me,
That was
it was
nice of him.
yeah, yeah. For me, it was always about structure. It was always about discipline. And that's what sports was for me. My dad instilled that in me at a very early age. Have respect for others, have respect for yourself, but also have the discipline and the structure to kind of go through life intentionally, not just kind of wander through life with no purpose. And so, for me, sports was my initial calling in life. It really brought structure in my life. It brought a social environment to my life. It enabled me to be a part of more than just one person, right? Be a part of a team and understand what a team mindset was. And so, most people join sports just to play the sport, not realizing it's teaching you life lessons along the way. And so,
Mhm.
from 4 years old all the way through high school, played several sports. And in Texas, I'm from Houston, Texas, born and raised here. I've been here my entire life. And, in Texas, Friday night lights, football is a big deal.
Yeah.
So when you get into high school, you're kind of choosing one sport on what you think you're going to thrive with. And I was really good at 2 sports. I was good at golf and I was good at football.
Mm.
And, golf isn't really a major thing in high school when it comes to, Texas sports. And so, being under the Friday night lights in that football environment, I decided to pursue football. I look back, I wish I would have continued golf because I was really, really good. I did 2 years on the junior PGA when I was, but prior to being a teenager. And I wish I would have pursued that, but I took football. I ran with it. I ended up getting a scholarship to play Division II ball in Oklahoma. It was fun. That was also another life lesson. Living, in a different state, smaller county, smaller environment. I'm definitely more of a big city guy than anything, and so that was a challenge for me. But I kind of accepted that and moved forward in that way. And so, after my first year, it was one of the I always tell people there's probably 2 or 3 decisions in your life that can define who you were and who you will be. And this was one of those for me. After my freshman year, I'll never forget my coach at the time pulled me aside. He was a mentor of mine, as well as my coach, and he said, Kyle, we're gonna offer you another full ride scholarship this next year. We want you to come back. We want you to play. We're excited about the second season with you being here. But as your mentor and as your a figure that I feel like you can respect, I'm gonna ask you to decline that. And I was blown away. I said, "What do you mean,
Mm.
Coach? You want me to decline a full ride scholarship? I'm gonna have to have a conversation with my parents first, And so I did that. I thought about it. I prayed on it. I declined the second year of coming back there. I came back home. He told me, he said, Kyle, you're destined for more than just the sport of football. What you do off the field is actually more crucial than what you're doing on the field. He said, you're paying more attention to, the foods that you eat, the team and what they're eating, the rehab if somebody gets injured, the recovery process or technique while people are working out and doing exercises. And, it kind of dawned on me. I was more focused on being the best athlete off the field to be the best athlete on the field.
Very
And
interesting.
so, people, they always take into consideration the sport or the job that they have, like the career opportunity that they have is the job. And it's not. It's what you do outside of your job and outside of that career and outside of that sport that enables you to be a better athlete or a better, employee in the environment of the working world. And so, kind of long story short, I moved into being just here at a community college in Houston, trying to figure out, what I wanted to do in life. And I'll never forget, I was finishing my basics and I read an article. It was the top 5 most rewarding career fields at that time. And I think number 2 or number 3 was being a physical therapist. And, it's a doctorate level degree. You got to, roll through your undergrad, your master's, and it really spoke in that article. It was a small article. It wasn't anything big like in the New York Times. It was a very small local article, but it talked about, you were the one person that took, and I think the example in the article was, a 90-year-old senior citizen that couldn't play on the ground with his grandkids, not to just be able to do that, but to be able to do that pain-free and enjoy it, right? Enjoy that time with the grandkids. And so, you were doing more than just making money. You were making a significant impact in somebody's life that you couldn't put a dollar to, right? And so there wasn't something that you could pay to get that done. You changed somebody's life. And, for me, that's my mission, is to change people's lives for the better. And so that spoke to me. I ended up going to Texas State University, finishing my undergrad. They had at the time, I don't know if they have this anymore, but it was the bridge program. So you actually go from your undergrad, you hyper accelerate through your master's, you go directly into your doctorate. It's a fast paced program, no breaks, no summers, no winters. It's a quick process. And midway through the bridge program, I actually found a clinic here in Houston that was doing outpatient therapy. I was gaining clinical hours to complete my degree. And working on a patient of mine, I'll never forget. His name was Butch. And he was a guy that was very down to earth, very straightforward. You're Southern Texan guy, right? And, I remember him telling me, he said, "Man, Kyle, you need to get these cryo chambers in here." And I said, "What's a cryo chamber?" This is back in like 2011. Nobody knew what this was. And long story short, we ended up buying a couple chambers for the clinic. We were just doing, post-surgical, reduction of swelling or inflammation or pain. And then as we started to, experience more and more of this therapy inside the practice, inside the clinic, I was hearing things from patients that weren't related to what we were trying to treat. Like, we were trying to treat a total knee replacement with pain or a total knee or whatever it may be. And then people were telling me, they're feeling better, they're sleeping better, they have less stress during the day, they have more energy. They're, all these contributing factors. I mean, people that were going through depression now are, feeling, I would say, more of a happy vibe throughout the day, more of a euphoric, positive feeling. And so I started to do research and I really dug into cryotherapy, and that led me to infrared saunas, which led me to compression, which led me to red lights, a PEMF, and all the things in this longevity space. And I got sucked in. I got sucked in really fast. And I always tell people that's the one thing you need to be careful of when you get involved in this space. You get so addicted to the positivity and just the aura of what we do here, extending people's health spans. And, I managed that clinic for about 3 years. I actually did not finish my doctorate degree. I dove all into this space 100%. My professors, my parents, everybody thought I was crazy. What are you doing? Finish your degree. And I opted out and I dove right in. 3 years later, I started the first iCRYO location in October of 2015. And that's chapter number 2. So.
Yeah. So you're scaling it all. You're taking it from a one-to-one practitioner relationship and just trying to spread it out and scale it as far as you can, it sounds like. And that was a tremendous blessing that coach, not many coaches probably would have redirected an athlete, especially a star athlete, to not take the next ride, right? And to put you on a different path. But that really says a lot for him, and it says a lot for you in terms of, showing that guy, that coach, that maybe you had a ton more potential than even what he could, make of you on the field, so that's sort of how I hear it. What a cool story. That's really awesome. I never heard that story before. So I appreciate that. I'm sure others will too. So now we're into the iCRYO chapter 2, like you say. So, talk about what is iCRYO. We've touched on it a little bit now, but sort of what's the elevator pitch on iCRYO? What's the mission? who do you serve, and sort of what makes iCRYO different, if you will?
Yeah, so it's interesting. When we started in this space in 2015, we were just a recovery concept. So no medical services, no IVs, no hyperbaric chambers. I started the first location with cryo, localized and whole body cryo, infrared saunas, and compression. That was it. That's all we had. I don't come from a medically administrative background, like a healthcare leadership. Being in a hospital system or a clinical environment. In that specific way, I just didn't have that background. And so, for me, I was very in tune with the wellness and recovery environment more than anything. And so we started the franchise in 2017. I brought my father into the company. We co-founded the franchise together. It took me a couple years to really iron out the basics, the marketing, the operations, the tours, the education, the training, all the things, that make a business a business. And I try to explain this to people, and some people can't fathom this, but, when we started iCRYO in 2015, when I was in this industry in 2011, 2012, there was nobody doing this at all, right? There was no franchise models. There wasn't even mom and pop shops around. And so, we had to create something from scratch, from literal nothing. And so it wasn't like I was opening up a restaurant and I could go around and look at other menus or how people are doing things. And so
there was no template whatsoever.
Exactly.
You had to create the template. Yeah.
Yes, sir. And so I always tell people we failed our way to the top. It was a failure. You learn what to do right out of what you did wrong. You correct that and you keep moving forward. And so we did that for almost a year or two, just trying to figure out the basics, from 2015 to 2016, 17. And then 2017 to 2018, we wrote up our franchise documents. We started franchising in the end of 2017. And sold our first handful of locations in 2019. It took us a year or so to kind of sell territories. But mind you, we're still in this recovery and wellness environment now, right? No medical services. And so in 2019, we've been franchising for about a year and a half. I started to see the IV industry really take off. I mean, it started booming big time. And so we started to look at it in 2018. I had a friend of mine who was a hospital CEO at the time. And I said, man, if we're ever going to go down this medical model route, or something around it, I need somebody like him. And so that guy his name is Scott Briner. He's our chief administrative officer for iCRYO. He heads up the entire medical division for the company, which accounts for over 50% of the company revenue. So it's a pivotal part. When he came on board in 2019, his sole job function was to really create a medical advisory board that would govern and kind of advise on what are the best practices. If the laws change left or right, we move with the laws. So we're always staying compliant. Designing the very first protocols and continuing to grow and evolve those protocols. It's a nonstop evolution, right? And so we launched a basic medical directorship model in 2019. It was very standard, nothing crazy. Vitamin infusions, vitamin shots. We weren't dealing with, Zofran or Toradol or Reglan or, semaglutide. I mean, none of those medical related things. It was really just vitamin infusions, very simplistic, kind of dipping our toe in the water, if you will. And in 2020, 2021, COVID hits, right? And so the earth gets flipped upside down. Everybody's going crazy. And we started to really understand that we were actually providing medical services. Like when you puncture that vein, whether you're doing vitamins or not, you are practicing medicine. And so our attorneys advised us to kind of move more towards a legitimate medical franchise route, just like you would find at an urgent care facility. So in 2021, we did that. We made a third transition of the company, which was the biggest transition we had to date. And we went full medical. So it was a medical-based franchise model on paper. We operated just like a medical facility inside of our centers. We started to coin the space, the medtail space, where medical met retail. And so on the front end, aesthetically, when you walk in, it looks very retail friendly, very vibrant, very cozy, very homey feeling. But on the back end, logistically, operationally, we function like a clinic. We function like a physician practice. We are practicing medicine. Now, the fun part is that uncuffed us. Now that we were a medical franchise, We could do all sorts of things, hyperbaric chambers. We could do, regenerative medicine type protocols and infusions. We could do all the things that we currently do now, ozone, UV, IV therapy, anything that really was crossing the border practicing medicine. The cuffs were off. So we're looking into TRT, HRT, hormones, DNA, lab work. I mean, it's, sky's the limit. And so, transitioning, like I said, from 2015 as a wellness concept, 2019, a medical directorship model, in 2021, where we're legitimately practicing medicine as a medical franchise. It's been a wild roller coaster, man.
Yeah, no, it sounds like it. What an evolution. So how do you see yourself then, in the now or in the future, in terms of where you sit in the medical space? And because you're still offering wellness and other, non-medical modalities too for recovery and all of that. So do you become a replacement for the primary care, market, or where do you guys see yourself in that realm?
Yeah, so I mean, I love where the political climate has recently transitioned. Obviously new president in office, whether you're for or against him is kind of irrelevant in my mind, but there's a massive push, not to just make America great again, but to make it healthy again. There's a lot of people that are now actioning, certain things around our healthcare system and really adopting, what is being proactive, not just reactive. We live in a very reactive society. COVID actually accelerated the proactive mentality, people trying to boost their immune system and fight things before it happens. And so, I think that was the silver lining that came out of COVID, is people are now more aware of what they should be doing to be proactive in their health. And I think it's pushing even further. You have, and it's kind of moved from the medtail space to the longevity space. People are realizing it's all about longevity. It's not about how long you live. It's not about your lifespan. It's about how long you live in a healthy state. It's about your health span, right? And so
Sure.
For us, that's one of the missions of iCRYO, is extending people's health span. Making people healthier longer, not just living longer, but living a healthier life longer. And so, for us, we have turned into a longevity center. The things that we bolt on to the iCRYO business model, it should be extending somebody's health span. If it's not, then we're doing something wrong. And so, we have always looked at this like a global approach. We've got 45 locations open a day, with another probably 5 that'll open before the end of the year. So we'll be at 50 open doors by January 1. We've got another 20-ish locations that'll open next year comfortably, but we've got just around 300 territories that are being developed over the North American market right now. I say North American because last year we launched Canada. It was the first country for us to go into outside the United States. We've got a partner out there that's going to develop 50 territories over the next 7 years. We've got LOIs out for several countries overseas, in the Asian market, in the European market, Middle East as well. And so for us, we're scheduled to do several hundred, if not a couple thousand centers globally over the next 10 to 20 years. And it's funny when I say that to people, they say 10 to 20 years. I said, oh yeah, this is not a short-term play for me. This isn't a 3, 4, 5 year and exit. This is something where this is my mission in life, not just the company's mission, but mine personally. I'm not here to sell this company. To me, it's not a company. You go through 3 different stages. And for me, we're at the 3rd stage. We're very close to. You go from creating a company, which anybody can do with an LLC that they can open up today through the Secretary of State. You go from a company to a brand, right? You put a ton of money, time, and energy into getting people to understand you don't just have a company, you have a brand. You have something that people can look at and see something different than just the company logo, right? They've created a branded image. But then you move from a brand to a movement. The movement is what really propels you to be a household name. Like Nike isn't anymore of a company or a brand. They're a movement, right? Apple is no longer just a fruit or a name or a logo. It's a movement, right? These massive organizations are no longer just companies or brands. They're movements in their own way. And so for us, I would consider us very soon here to be the longevity movement.
Literally part of the culture itself. So very, very cool. So in that, in developing the markets and opening locations, and the industry is booming, the wellness slash medical, medtel, as you coined it. It's a growth trend throughout the industry, and not just with iCRYO. So you do see lots of different options there. So, how does iCRYO differentiate itself? And, when someone comes to an iCRYO, it's one thing to be able to market and get people in through the door. Once they show up, what makes iCRYO special? What's the experience like? What can someone expect?
Yeah, so I always tell people our core values, there's 8 of them. The first one is the most important, and it's people first. I think one of the biggest differences of somebody walking into an iCRYO and somebody walking into a competitor, or maybe somebody that's kind of crossing the border of our space in some intent, you're going to find that the people come first, and the people meaning the guests. But you're also going to find out that the people inside the center, whether it's treating others with respect, really finding out what people are looking to do, what their purpose is. Somebody walks in the door and is curious about the services you provide. It shouldn't be an immediate sales mode, like, oh, we got to sell this person a used car, right? It should be, figuring out what that person is here for. What are some of the things that they're dealing with? Give them a first-time guest tour. Every single person that walks inside of our building for the very first time, we give them about an 8 to 15-minute tour around the building. We want them to see all the services we provide, the benefits they can get from them, and 9 times out of 10, we see people get that aha moment, like the light flickers in their head and the bulb goes on and says, oh my gosh, I was coming in here for, a bum knee because I rolled my knee or, cranked my knee in a basketball tournament over the weekend. And I didn't realize, like, I can use this for sleep, and I can use this for anxiety, and, I can use this for, all the things. And, it's just real interesting when people see what we have and what we're doing. It's very different. So I would say that the first separator is people first. I think a lot of businesses, a lot of companies in our industry, they're looking at the sales first and the people second, and it's flip-flop. It's the people first, the sales come later. The money comes with that, right? It's at the end of the day, we need to be focused on the individual and what they are doing here and how we can help them, right? Helping the people around us. So I would say that's the first thing. The 3 things that I always point out in our mission statement are affordability, professionalism, and convenience. Those are the 3 things that we tout all day long in iCRYO. That's a part of our mission statement. For me, I want to make sure affordability is key, right? We live in an environment where, the landscape of whether it's the stock market or the SBA or, the housing industry, things are just going through the roof as far as interest rates. I can't walk out of a restaurant with even a salad and a water for less than $30 nowadays, right? So at the end of the day, it's, you got to pay attention to costs. And so that's the one thing that we do with iCRYO. We stagger a 4-tier pricing system across the country to be affordable in different markets. Affordability is massive for me, right? I remember being a high school and college student that's, had to put $7 in my motorcycle to make it to class and back. And that had to carry me throughout the week. So I get what it is, to be on a budget in that way. The second one is professionalism. We are operating in a medical environment. I see a lot of our competitors, they're wearing T-shirts or tank tops or, things that just really don't embody a professional medical environment, right? For us, our staff is in scrubs 7 days a week. We have a very professional look. We have a very professional feel. We do consultations with each one of our guests to make sure that we're approaching this the right way. And so a professional environment from the time you walk in to the time you walk out, that's how we see things. And then lastly is convenience. To me, that might be the most important because people today, we live in an Amazon world. We don't want things tomorrow. We want it right now. And so for me, I've always told our franchisees and our team that we will be a walk-in based business. You do not have to book a reservation to come in and see us. You have to walk in off the street, during your lunch break or in between dropping your kids off and going to, the gym or soccer practice, whatever it may be. Like, people live chaotic lives. People live on the go. People are moving at such a fast pace nowadays. You have to be a convenient business in order to serve them. So for us, the convenience of being able to, take people in when they have the time is important. So those are the main, I would consider the main metrics that separate us.
Yeah, totally. Great. One thing that sort of I want to piggyback off of something you said in terms of evolving into a more medical model. Um, it was a few years ago, you could walk into any sort of wellness and recovery type facility, whether it was one of the big box places, franchise places, or mom and pop location. And the first thing through the door that you hear is, "Oh, hey, Joe, what are we doing today?"
Mhm.
And it was really all consumer driven. It was member guest driven in terms of, do I want to do cryo today? Do I want to do PMF today? Do I want to do red light today? That kind of thing. But I would have to imagine that as we're moving into a more medical model, that sometimes some of that is going to be flipped into assessing the patient, figuring out what they need from an offering standpoint that you can now, help them leverage, and you're giving them more guidance, more education, more nurturing, more management of their situation, and sort of creating more intimacy, if you will, rather than just the restaurant model. Oh, today I'm going to have a salad. Tomorrow I'm going to have an appetizer. Next day I'm just going to come in and have dessert because that's all I feel like doing and that's all I have time for. So maybe you can talk about that a little bit and sort of how that plays into your model.
Yeah, definitely. So I love it because I was kind of smiling while you said that, because it makes me think of where I want us as human beings to be, but I know we're a little bit different than that. And what I mean by that is people don't buy what they need, they buy what they want, right? And so you have to get them to understand that what they need and what they want should be the same thing, right? It's just educating them on why that is. So for me, you're always going to have the person where they don't want to have a personalized plan. They don't want to be told what to do. They just say, hey, I'm spending my hard, working dollars. And if I want to come in for red light or cryo or compression, I'm going to do whatever I want to do. Right. And so you've got to understand that there's always going to be those types of people in the world that say, hey, I know you have all this stuff. I appreciate you trying to, customize and tailor a plan for me, but these are the things that I want to do, and you're not going to convince me otherwise, right? And so that's always going to be there.
Sure.
But to the person that says, hey, I really want to hone in on my health, and I do agree that, there isn't a one size fits all mentality, right? Things need to be tailored specific to the person. We do that. And so at the end of the day, we want to make sure that we are sitting down with the guests. We want to make sure that we are spending time with them. So much to the fact that I actually send secret shoppers to some of our locations, and our franchisees that are probably watching this right now, like, oh my God. But I do. I send secret shoppers to some of our locations. I don't disclose it. I want it to be, a real raw experience. And we did that. It was funny. The last time we did that, it was in a location here in Texas. I'll give you that. I won't release the actual location name, but I basically said, hey, I want you to go in for an IV, just act like a first-time guest. Let me know what your experience was. She called me back. This lady called me back, blown away. She said, Kyle, I cannot believe the level of detail that the nurse that, I walked in and started talking to the nurse, the level of detail that she wanted to know about me on why I was pursuing an IV so she could tailor an IV that met all of my requirements, right? All the things that I was trying to conquer, whether it was adding a couple boosters to the bag for a specific reason, or just really understanding who I was. And it was interesting. She said I was actually pushing to buy a more expensive IV. I wanted to see if she would actually target the dollars that I was being sold, because knowing she's probably going to make commissions off of that, or if she would pivot and move to something that I really needed. And lo and behold, she did. She literally stuck to her guns. She kept promoting the more expensive IV. And the nurse on the other side kept saying, you don't need that. This is what you need. You need this right here. You need to add these two boosters. And it was more affordable for the person, but it was more intentional on what that person actually needed. So at the end of the day, we did a few things. We connected with the person on a different level to really understand what they needed. It was a full consultative, personalized approach to getting this person what they need. The outcome was actually more affordable than what the guest was pushing for. And so at the end of the day, that's not just a separator for iCRYO, but those are the things that we do every single day in our centers. We really want to understand what the person is here for, whether it's tailoring, PEMF on days, or red light on days, or cryo on days, being intentional about that person is spending their hard-earned dollars to be there and their time. That's the one thing I probably preach the most. The time is something that you'll never get back, right? If you lose money, you can go make more money tomorrow. You can't gain your time back. So not only are these people spending their money, but they're spending their time. And so for me, that's probably the most valuable part that we need to look at is if somebody's taking time out of their day to invest in their health, we have to pay attention to that. We can't just sell them everything on the menu. We have to put something in front of them that makes sense for that specific person.
Yeah, totally. And because they have so many options out there in terms of where they can go and businesses popping up every day, I think one of the most important things that your staff, any staff can do is learn about that guest, learn about that member, learn about that customer, because each time you learn something about them, you can teach something to them about themselves. And I think that is one of the best ways to create a relationship with people. And so the way you say, you want to create relationships with your guests. You don't want just to be another retail location, that kind of thing. You want to really, create some long-term life, relationships with these folks. I think that's a great way to do it. And I think that the secret shopper thing is so cool. I think it's like a super underutilized tool that's so easy to implement. It's not very expensive. And as long as you have someone who is relatively intelligent, you can send them into somewhere. And this person, it sounds like you didn't even brief her on exactly what to do, but she came up with these ideas on her own. And so that might have even made it more of an authentic feel for the employee, right? Because she didn't think it was some actor coming in with preconceived scripts and things. So I think secret shopping, and I've done that before in my life years back. I would do it for restaurants, and that's always and it's fun for the secret shopper. And so I think it's totally an underutilized tool. And that's, kudos for putting that into play. That's a great idea. And I can actually see you doing that to your franchisees, because I've been to some of your events. I've witnessed the presentations on I forget what it was called, the Elevate prank calls and things like that, where you guys have a lot of fun and you do everything in the spirit of teaching and education. And a lot of times it's extremely funny and puts people in maybe a tough spot, but it's all in good learning and all in good education in the end. So you guys have a lot of fun. So, and I love your events because of stuff like that. So cool. Now, let me see, where do we want to go next? In terms of services, I've always been interested to know how a company like iCRYO comes about, because in terms of what you guys add, because, if I'm selling ABC widget, ABC wellness, supplement, what have you, iCRYO is one of the top people on my list that I need to call, right? If I'm just getting into the business of selling a wellness or a supplement of some sort, you're one of the first people I want to call. How do you take that phone call? How do you guys put that process together so that by the time it hits sort of the stage and gets unveiled at an iCRYO, people coming in the door as customers can have that confidence to say, look, everything I know is in this place is going to be effective. It's going to be safe. It's going to be the best of its kind that I could possibly get my hands on, because these guys have taken these steps. What would you say to that?
Yeah, so it's funny. You actually almost listed all of my requirements just now. So it's got to be effective, right? In my mind, when I look at a new product, I want to make sure it's something real, right? There's a lot of snake oil out there. There's a lot of things that aren't being made, I would say to the caliber they need to be. And so, in my mind, I'm always making sure that whatever we bolt onto this company, it's a real device with real benefits that has data to back it up, has some scientific, articles, studies, things that I can point to say there is real things happening within this service modality. So that's the first thing, is making sure that it is truly effective, and it's not something that's kind of just snake oil. The second thing is definitely making sure that it's compliant, right? I want to make sure that it's safe. And so you talked about safety. There's a lot of devices, a lot of things out there that, are kind of a little sketchy to me. And so, I want to make sure that it's a safe device, safe manufacturer. It's made in a safe environment. It checks all the quality. And the governing bodies that govern this industry, whether it's the Board of Pharmacy, Board of Nursing, things that need, UL and CE rating. If it's a true on medical device, is it 510K, all the things. And so, for me, making sure that it's compliant, making sure that it's safe, because at the end of the day, we're servicing thousands of people across the nation. Every single treatment needs to be in a safe environment, needs to be in a compliant environment. So that would be the second thing. The third thing I always talk about, and a lot of people don't think about this, because when something comes out, it's new, right? People are trying to figure out, is it a fad? Does it work? The awareness isn't there yet. And so, I will say red light therapy is a perfect example. We looked at red light therapy back in 2016. Did I see that it was very effective? Yes. Did I see that the manufacturer was, building things that were compliant and safe? Yes. Did I feel like the awareness was there yet? It wasn't. I feel like in 2016, red light wasn't a very known service. A lot of people weren't doing it. People didn't understand the true benefits. But as the things progressed, 2019, 2020, 2021, red light just took off, right? It was like massive. Same thing with pulse. I feel like over the last 5 years, PEMF has just exploded in the industry. I mean, as far as the science, the data, the research. So for me, it's all about the awareness, right? I never want to bolt something onto the company that people have to spend a lot of time understanding, is this going to benefit me, right? If it's going to take us a year to really grasp it, should we bolt it on right now? And so for me, that's another one of the check boxes. If I'm looking at a device or I'm looking at something specific that's new for us, are the masses educated around it? Is it something to where I'm going to have to spend all of our marketing dollars educating people why, or do they already have a sense of why, and I'm just educating them in marketing and advertising that we now have it, right? And so for me, it's about the awareness. The last thing, and it's actually the first thing, the last thing I'll mention is the very first thing that I do when I investigate new products. It has nothing to do with the product. It has nothing to do with the device. It has nothing to do with the science. It has everything to do with the people. What I mean by that is I'm very relational, and you know that about me, Joe. And so at the end of the day, I want to make sure that the people running the company, we mesh on core values. If we do not mesh on core values, I'm not signing a contract with a device. I'm signing a contract with a company that is run by people. And so at the end of the day, I want to meet the CEO. I want to meet the executive team. I want to meet the leadership team. I want to know who's driving the mission of building these products. And if we can't see eye to eye, then essentially, we're never going to be able to do positive business together. So, the relationship always comes first with me. The product comes secondary. And so, at the end of the day, I feel like the relationships that I've built in this space are truly genuine, right? At the end of the day, you're not just selling a product to make a bunch of money. The people that we are in business with at iCRYO, they're selling a product because it's doing a benefit to the guest, and the money is secondary to that, right? Bringing it to the people so they can feel better, function better, look better, and live a healthier lifestyle. That's mission number one. Mission number two is the money that is on top of selling those devices. And so that's the very first checkbox. If somebody asks me, hey, I'm selling this device, I'm usually going to respond and say, we either need to get on a call, you need to fly here, or I'm going to fly there, because at the end of the day, I'm doing business with you, not with your device.
Yeah. What a great answer, way to think about it. And I want to pull on one of the strings there. You said, effectiveness, safety, awareness is really interesting to me. And the way I think about that, and one of the things that from sort of an outside position looking in at a lot of the businesses that are, that I'm exposed to, one of the things that I think is a challenge for your industry in particular, not in particular, but more than most perhaps, is staffing. And how do you find people that it's a balance between spending a lot on personnel and getting someone who may have a medical or health background or a background that would lend itself to a quicker understanding of some of these tools and approaches. It's a balance between that and controlling cost, frankly, and not having every single person in your facility be an RN or an MD. And so how do you strike that balance? And I think the awareness piece is a super component of that, is that if you're putting in things that require ground up, education for everyone, not just the market, not just on the marketing side, but marketing to your staff and giving your staff the tools and the ammunition and the understanding that it takes to share these things. And that comes in a couple of components. It comes from being trained well by the corporation, by iCRYO, by somebody like Pulse, or by, CryoBuilt, or whoever your partner happens to be, and having those tools and structures kind of in place. And then the other thing is just making your staff products of the product. Let's have everyone using these services. And, it's almost to the point where I think, and push back on this or whatever, but if it were me and I was interviewing somebody for a position as a wellness rep, I would be looking for somebody with a story around their own personal wellness, because I want somebody to come across authentically and not always come across as selling the next service, because I think people smell that from a mile away.
Immediately.
And so, I mean, that's kind of how I try to run my business and build my business, is more on the relationship side. And that's why I think, you and I kind of resonate, and iCRYO and Pulse kind of resonate with each other because of that. But how important I think it is for staff to understand what they're talking about. And I think a big part of that is usage and how they put it into their lifestyle. And that kind of just will ooze from their pores now, instead of, hey, I'm trying to remember what to say next type thing so I can make a sale.
That's right. I mean, you nailed it on the head. And it's interesting, I thought, venturing into the medical side of this and hiring, RNs and, PAs, MPs, MDs, all the things, right? One thing I realized very fast is, they're trained in medical school for things that are not in our industry, right? Like they don't go to medical school to learn about red light and to learn about cryotherapy and to learn about, PEMF or
nutrition.
Or NAD, or, and so it's not like we're starting from scratch with medical professionals, because they do have a very good understanding of the anatomy of the body, how the body functions. And so they definitely do have a leg up as far as the education around the services we do. They just have to learn them. I spoke early on in this podcast about, we train. One of the first things that we implemented inside of our model was a training platform. I know we were one of the very first in the space to create an actual university around our courses and around our services. And we do that to date. It's iCRYO University. It's built into our intranet. Our franchisees have access to that. All of our staff have access to that. You're required to do basic level knowledge training on every single service. When you're hired with us, that's the first onboarding phase. Over the first 30 days, we need iCRYO University base courses complete. How can you walk around in a center selling or talking about services that you really don't know much about? And so for us, knowledge is key in that. Knowledge is key to not just provide the authenticity of, what you're talking about, but that sales associate or that team member or that registered nurse or that body sculpting expert, whoever it is, I want them to feel confident in their shoes. I want them to understand that, if they get asked about, PEMF or compression or an IV infusion or a facial, that they can talk about that, right? They can feel comfortable having that conversation with the person that walked inside the door. And it's all about the confidence in that conversation, right? And you said it immediately, and you said it good, but people can smell the BS. If you're not being authentic, if you don't know what you're talking about, they're going to read right through that. And so I'm very, very, critical with our team members. If you don't know the answer, that's okay. Tell them that. Let them know, hey, that's a great question. I've never been asked that before. Let me go ask my manager and I can get you a more, appropriate response. And so, it does two things. Number one, it shows that guest that you're honest, right? You're being transparent with them. You're honest with them. They start to respect you for that. Number two, you're going to learn something new, right? We learn something new every day. So it's okay not to be a know-it-all, right? It's okay to not know things. At the end of the day, if somebody asks me a question that I don't know the answer to, it's almost like, man, Joe, that's a great question. Let's go figure that out together, right? Let me go figure out what that answer is. And, let's both learn something new today. So the staffing model at iCRYO is kind of split. We've got half lay and half medical. And so, at any given location, there's about 10 to 12 people that are fully employed at an iCRYO location, about 5 or 6 nurses, about 5 or 6, lay people. But we work in a universal mindset. So we don't have a front desk receptionist person, and we don't have a body sculpting person that only does body sculpting. We don't just have a, lifestyle person that only focuses on lifestyle services. There is no front desk actually in our building. I ripped the front desk out 5 years ago. And so, at the end of the day, it was a barrier between connecting and making that relationship with the guest. And so for us, it's universal. Everybody does everything in the building. Doesn't matter if you're, newly hired or you've been there for 3 years. Everybody gives everybody tours. Everybody gives everybody education. Everybody puts people in cryo, compression, red light. Everybody scrubs toilets. Everybody, scrubs down window seals. It's like you're not above any part of status in the company. Obviously, the one component that lay people can't do is puncture people with IVs and shots. So the medical space is done by the RNs, but that doesn't mean the RNs can't be at the front answering phone calls and assisting people with tours. And so we operate in that universal employment mindset.
Yeah. No, awesome. Next, I wanted to ask you about sort of something that you hear a couple of different arguments on these days. And I know it's a huge trend right now with companies like you guys, and that's the GLP-1s and the weight loss drugs. And so what's your statement on that? I know you're for them, but what are some of the things that you would say to the consumer that's hearing a couple of different arguments for and against these things?
Yeah, I mean, GLP-1s, I think they have their place, which is why we offer it. I knew what is happening now was going to happen when it was released. And what's happening now is people are doing it as a quick fix, right? But we don't know the long-term effects right now. We don't. So what happens to a person that's on semaglutide, tirzepatide, all of the GLP-1s, what happens to them in 10 years, in 20 years, in 30 years, right? We don't know that yet. We're at the very beginning of this, this era of medical weight loss in form of an injection, right? And so at the end of the day, that's what scares me the most is people are adopting this so fast that they're not really paying attention to. If they don't correct things now, they're going to get stuck in kind of a rut moving forward over the next decade. And what I mean by that is, the GLP-1s are there to help you lose weight, pretty quick, right? People are losing significant weight. My father lost over 100 pounds on tirzepatide, and so I know it definitely works. It has its place. But you also need to take into consideration, if you're depleting the body of nutrients or you're adding synthetics to your body, you have to replace that with something. So, you have to counter that with supplementation, whether it's from vitamins or, whether it's oral vitamins, customized supplements, proteins, amino acids. You definitely have to consider you're losing all things, not just fat. You're losing muscle, you're losing bone density, you're losing all sorts of things. That the body's not just targeting fat. And so making sure you're staying high on protein, making sure that you're exercising, making sure that you're still working out so you can rebuild some of the muscle that you lost. And then understanding too, if you ever get off of that, which the intent is to get off, it's not to live off it forever. If you haven't retrained your body and your mind in your eating habits, your drinking habits, if you're continuing to eat Big Macs and, Taco Bell all day, drinking 3 or 4 Dr. Peppers and sodas a day, when you get off of that GLP-1, you're going to relapse massively. And so, I've been trying to tell people, educating them on the GLP-1s are there for an intent, right? It's there to give you the leaps and bounds that you had been looking for in your weight loss journey. But as you're taking leaps and bounds, you have to understand the critical small steps to retrain your mind and to retrain your body on what it is to live a healthy lifestyle. So as soon as you start this lifestyle journey, and I always call it a lifestyle, right? It's not a diet. It's not something that's temporary. The GLP-1s are there to be temporary, but the lifestyle component is something you should be paying attention to. So if I'm a guest and I start GLP-1s now, or let's say January 1, right? Everybody wants a new year, new you.
Right.
I'm immediately right now, I'm prepping for, okay, I got to get my diet in check. I've got to make sure that I schedule to be exercise, whether it's 2 or 3 days a week, even if it's just walking the dog, right? Some type of high protein intake. I need to get my sleep and my rest. So I'm planning out, not only am I going to start this medical weight loss drug, but I'm going to change my lifestyle in the process. So when I meet my desired weight, if my desire is to lose 85 pounds, when I hit that, I can get off this GLP-1. But during the process of that massive weight loss, I'm retraining what my lifestyle is. And so I think that's the biggest component. If people do not grab a hold of that and run with that, we're going to have this massive yo-yo approach in this relapse of now it's just a new form of a diet, but an injection.
Yeah. And so what I hear from that is that if there are providers offering these drugs without a heavy component of lifestyle coaching to go along with it, you're not setting yourself up very well. And you're becoming part of the problem, or what could become part of the problem, down the road, to your point. So I forgot to ask you this earlier when we were talking about services and things. And trust me, I am not fishing when I ask this question. Okay. I want a true Kyle Jones answer here. All right. Out of all the services iCRYO offers, what's your favorite? And that could change from time to time. I get it. But what's your go-to right now? Let's put it that way.
So I look at things as more of like a lifestyle go-to and a specialty go-to, right? Okay, because there are some services you can't do all the time. Sure. I would tell you my lifestyle go-to right now, it's a tie. It's a tie between red light and cryo. Those are my two addictions. I will tell you that I do red light more than cryo because I have a red light bed at my house. We operate with Theralite, and Theralight's got, what I would consider the #1 bed in the world. And I actually have one in my house. So me and my wife in the morning fight over who's going to do red light first.
Of course.
I will tell you that on the specialty side of things, and you can do one of these services every day, but I consider it more of a specialty offering because it really is just another tier in the medical device realm. Hyperbarics is probably one of my addictions. I love hyperbaric, just the data and the science behind it and how I feel when I do it. It's like second to none. And it's wild to me that, hyperbarics has come such a long way over the last 5 years, maybe even 10 years, but it's been around for decades and decades and decades. And so it's just mind blowing. Yeah. So for me right now, the 3 big services that I kind of tackle, cryo, red light, and hyperbarics, something that's in our business model today. I will tell you the 2 things that I'm most excited about coming downstream. One is obviously we're onboarding you guys at Pulse PMF. I'm really excited about that. I know every time I sit in that chair, it's like an immediate relief. And so that instant gratification is something I'm excited to get. I know I've got franchisees that contact me every month about when are we getting PMF? When are we getting it? So that's probably going to be one of my new favorites. And then this next year, we're launching hormones. So TRT, HRT, hormones. We're doing blood testing. I've always wanted to get into that side of the business. And so that's probably something. Those are the 2 services here very soon that I'm looking forward to, that I think will be on top of my favorites list. So
awesome. All right. Very cool. Switching gears now in the last couple of minutes here. We've been talking a lot about how iCRYO serves the consumer and how you guys put yourself out there to change people's lifestyles and to give as many people help as you possibly can. And so there's another side of the business, obviously, and that's franchising. And so to address the franchise market, if you were going to talk to them for a minute, what would you be telling the franchisee candidate, if you will? First of all, maybe you can talk about what type of candidates you look for with iCRYO, and then what would you tell them, and how you position iCRYO as, a long-term growth opportunity for franchisees?
Yeah, I always tell any prospective franchisee, look at everybody in the industry. I mean, do your research, visit everybody in person. I mean, you're going to spend, and I always try to prep people with this. Doesn't matter if you're doing an iCRYO location, if you're going to open up, another franchise that's in our industry, you're going to spend about $1 million, right? It's about $1 million to open up any one of these concepts. On the low end, maybe 800,000. On the high end, maybe 1.5, 1.6 million, depending on, the square footage, what company you decide to do business with, which franchise company you attach to. They're a little bit different, but they're mostly the same. I always tell people, if iCRYO is your first stop, if you flying into Houston and meeting the corporate team is the first of every company in our industry to meet, I'm very direct with them. You need to meet everybody, because at the end of the day, we all have a very similar business. But what I've talked about a ton on this call and what I live my life by is relationships. If you, me, the CEO, and you, the new franchisee, do not have similar core values, we're not going to be able to do good business together. So at the end of the day, it's a two-way interview. I'm interviewing the prospective franchisee to see if they're a right fit for iCRYO. They also should be interviewing me to see if we're a right fit for them. Right? At the end of the day, you're not just making a business decision. You are going to be contractually tied to that franchisor for at least 10 years, maybe more. And so at the end of the day, you should be making sure that you align with the people, you align with the franchisor, and meet all of them. Don't just get on the phone, physically fly to their corporate office, meet them in person. The second thing that I'll always tell people, I always tell prospective franchisees, if you're getting into this business because you're in it to make money, you're doing yourself an injustice. You're not doing right by yourself. You're not doing right by the guests, and you're not doing right by the franchisor. If you're just in this to make a ton of money, you're doing it for the wrong reasons. One of the first things that I ask somebody is, what are you passionate about? What in the morning when you wake up, what makes you wake up and what gets you going? What makes you tick, right? What's the thing that is in your head that keeps driving you day in, day out? And if it's not, helping people and, getting people healthier and living pain-free lives and all those things, you don't have the passion that we're looking for. And so there have been a lot of people that have come with a lot of money to the iCRYO office and said, I'll buy 20 territories or 30 or whatever it may be. And the passion's not there. The intentions are wrong. The core values aren't there. And that's my part of the interview where I say, well, you're just not a right fit for us. You're probably a fit for somebody else. So at the end of the day, I always tell people to be very genuine in what you're looking for, but do the interview process and make sure that you meet all the franchisors in this industry.
Excellent. Very excellent. All right. Well, just wrapping things up, I'd love to ask you what you see in the future as far as the whole industry goes. What are you perceiving as tailwinds that are going to propel this industry and keep it going and help it grow and all of that? And also tailwinds, things that you find to be, threatening to the industry or at least a challenge to the industry going forward.
Yeah, so I think the biggest challenge is going to be the laws are changing so fast. The governing bodies, medical boards are paying more attention to our space. And so we have to keep up with that evolution. The thing that scares me the most is people cutting corners, which I see it done all the time. I see companies right in front of us, small ones, big ones, doesn't matter the size, they're cutting corners, right? So at the end of the day, making sure that we're being compliant, making sure that we're doing the right thing for the industry, right? We're preaching the right things. We're all saying the right things. We're all doing this together. I encourage competition. Competition creates awareness. Awareness, it creates an environment where it's an industry that is really here to stay and be here for a long time. And so the only way we can do that is to protect that. When we're running our clinics, whether you own one location or you're a massive franchise, do the right thing, right? Stay in the legal bounds, stay compliant. Say the right things. Don't claim a bunch of crazy stuff. Just do it the right way. And so I think it's the one thing that if we can keep pushing down awareness and the right things to do, we're going to conquer amazing things as an industry, and we're going to help millions, if not billions of people by doing this. But we will shoot ourselves in the foot if we try to cut a corner, right? I always tell people, stay the course. If it takes us a little bit longer to get there, to do it the right way, I'm willing to do that. And so at the end of the day, as long as we stay on course and we lock arms as an industry, we're going to be in really good shape, and we're going to help a lot of people. So.
Yeah. Excellent. All right. Well, as we wrap up, I think this has been a great conversation, Kyle. Really appreciate your time today. And so, the best way for folks to learn more about iCRYO, I assume, would be to go to iCRYO.com.
Yes, sir.
Is there any other way if people want to learn more about the franchise opportunity or a location near them, or is that the best way?
Yeah, iCRYO.com is where we house everything. You can find us on socials, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all the things. But yeah, you know, if you're interested in seeing a location, or you're interested in a franchise opportunity, we're always here to help.
Great. Well, thanks again, Kyle. Appreciate your time today. Thanks for being on Resilient Business. We'll see you soon.
Appreciate it, man.